An Aussie Christian is being dragged before the Queensland Human Rights Commission after refusing to perform an Aboriginal welcome to country at his church and state conference, which, if you remember, I attended earlier this year. But instead of cowering to the legal threat, Dave Pello, who I consider now a good friend, is using the battle ahead to broaden the fight for free speech down under. Joining me now is the man himself. Mr. Pello, thank you for joining us. And before we get on to tonight's event that I'm really excited to join, and for those who want to know the details for it, defendingdemocracy.au, can you tell us what brought us to this point? What happened?
Look, I want to talk about the major problem, which is the grievance industry. But the facts of the story which triggered this sorry saga are this. I held a tour in conjunction with the Australian Christian Lobby of marginal Australian Queensland seats leading up to the Queensland election. It was a tour of meetings, political teaching for Christians in Christian churches by Christians of Christian teaching. And so Christians come along. And at the beginning of it, as I usually do, not a one-off, I try and make the audience think I'm about to do an Aboriginal religious acknowledgement of country, which has, spiritual and religious elements to it, even if people don't know it. It's there. I gave a Christian history, basically American founding fathers, Australian founding fathers, and Christian teaching, saying through history and scripture, Christians are allowed to and should participate in politics. One of the complaints from the complainant was that I didn't give an exhaustive history of Aboriginal suffering in Australia. And I'm like, why would I? It's got nothing to do with the topic or the meeting. Anyway, this person said my description of the idea and worldview of traditional Aboriginal religion personally vilified and humiliated him and the audience, appreciating the Christian teaching that so few people offer, was me inciting a crowd of hatred which set upon him. So a great deal of exaggeration and just hyperventilation in this guy's fabricated and false complaint. But he has made a complaint about me now to the Queensland Human Rights Commission that I am allegedly guilty of racially and religiously vilifying and humiliating him. And so I have to now, without any choice, attend a compulsory conciliation meeting, at which his preferred outcome would be that I publicly apologise and attend some kind of re-education camp.
Obviously, this is somebody that attended your event. What was your reaction to the complaint at the Human Rights Commission?
Well, it's upsetting. It really wrecks your day. I mean, the next day he messaged me on multiple social media channels and the website chatbot and email and everything. And it was just a copy and paste of the same thing. And immediately he had legal threats in there. Now, as a Christian, you're meant to settle disputes without courts, without taking your Christian brother to the world to settle disputes for us. You're meant to be able to settle it in the church. There wasn't any attempt to do that. You have to get legal advice once it's become a legal threat. So the legal advice that I got was ignore it. Hopefully it goes away. It's rubbish. There's nothing to it. And several weeks or a month later, I got the notification from my lawyers that it had become official, which was another dampener. And you know what? It's no coincidence that these things happen right in the middle of me actually trying to undertake ministry. So it certainly does put a damp in your step, and you have to deal with that and process it before you can inflict that upon the people who care about you and share that with them, which then makes that go on further. So yeah, it's a little bit upsetting, and that's from me who knows the law, knows my rights. So my heart really goes out to the people who are untrained and unoriented in this. And that's why I'm really concerned that we all come together, and really glad that so many people are coming together to say enough is enough. And this is absolutely one bridge too far, too often. And we have to put a stop to the weaponization of the grievance industry.
It's wild. And we've seen this time and time again. In fact, I had on last week a comedian who was also being dragged through the same human rights commission, and it takes nothing for somebody to make a complaint. In fact, it's just going online and filling out a form, and like you said,
That's right.
you have to attend, and the process becomes a punishment. And even if you're found innocent of whatever it is, it can often cost you a lot of money and certainly a lot of time. So that brings us to tonight, because when this happened, you told me your response to it in typical Minister Dave Pello, I'm reading everywhere, Minister Dave Pello's style is,
Yeah.
well, we're gonna turn lemons into lemonade, and we're gonna make this about a fight for broader free speech, especially in the conservative side of Australia. Could tell the audience what tonight's event and the details they can find at defendingdemocracy.au. What is it about? What's the point? And I guess why?
Well, my first tip is to ordinary Australians who aren't orientated in how to deal with complaints against them. And there are so many people who I know already have had complaints made about them or find themselves the subjects of lawfare. That is, people using bad laws to punish innocent people. And they might be public servants in the health department or the education department. They might be foster parents. And these kind of people have no political or media connections, and they find themselves really in a terrifying kind of situation, lots of anxiety on their friends, etc. My first piece of advice is don't respond, don't answer, get a lawyer straight away. Even though theoretically the QHRC and other tribunals don't take sides, they absolutely are adversarial, and we've seen that time and time again. They're not on the side of right-thinking, conservative Christian people. And so that's what I did. Now, this case really should go away very quickly. If there's any common sense to be found in the QHRC at all, this should be an easily dismissed case. But the fact is that they have no bar that a complaint has to reach. There's no test of its validity or sobriety or seriousness. There's no test on whether there's any factual truth to it. It's basically, if your feelings got hurt, we'll take the complaint, force the other person to come into mandatory conciliation. So this involves stress and cost for innocent people. And so my thought is for the next 10 or 100 people who are going to be targeted by this. And so what I want to do, and what we are doing with a whole bunch of people like yourselves who are champions of free speech and an actual representative democracy that's equal and justice that's fair for everybody, is we're actually going to raise a war chest of funds for the HRLA, the Human Rights Law Alliance, who are defending innocent people. When a activist of some type or somebody whose feelings just got hurt, if you accidentally knock the chip off of the shoulder of somebody who's been trained by the grievous industry to be resentful and unforgiving, bitter and hostile, and suddenly they launch a case of lawfare against you, we need a shield to protect innocent people against the sword of government. Most people will just have a dispute, flame wars on Twitter and get over it. But there's some people who will bring the sword of government to punish innocent people. HRLA is that law clinic which is going to defend innocent people. So we're going to have Australia's largest ever online political rally for free speech tonight. At 7 p.m. till 10 p.m., we've got 3 hours of non-stop short speeches from high-profile, high-caliber independent journalists, senators, politicians, constitutional law professors, a huge variety and a huge lineup of people. It's going to be entertaining. It's going to be exciting. And it's also going to be true as we advocate for a better democracy where people can, right or wrong, participate in a debate and a fair exchange of ideas without being dragged before the courts. That's our objective, as well as to raise a war chest for HRLA to actually defend the targets of this grievance industry. The URL is defendingdemocracy.au. On that page, you're going to be able to watch the live stream and make donations. You're going to be able to read a little bit about the case and find links to some of the media which is being generated around this case. The urgency here is, while the media is interested, we have to capture the moment and try and shift the Overton window of acceptable discourse to the place where we can actually make the point that this has gone way too far. And now people's feelings are creating victims out of innocent people instead of just protecting people who may be actually discriminated against. And as Ricky Gervais says, just because you're offended doesn't mean you're right.
If you think it's important to stand for free speech before it's too late, make sure to share this story and the event far and wide, and I'll see you tonight. And you know what? All these attacks on free speech remind me to make sure that you're following me across all platforms. Follavi.com. You follow me everywhere. Because even if you're watching me on a platform you think is safe, well, it might not be, because they may not kick me off, but the platform itself may be shut down. So follavi.com. Follow me absolutely everywhere so they can never stop you from hearing the other side of the story. Follavi.com.